For my assignment number 2 for Learning Theory, Media, and the Curriculum, I'm going to be covering James Paul G. and his theory of gaming literacy. G has education experience in psycholinguistics, education, and literacy. His most recent work focuses on gaming literacy, how video games can be used in education, and how gaming varies compared to current educational practices. Today there are so many new tools and technologies available to us in the world. It made G wonder, why video games? What is it about them that makes them such a great learning tool? Well, by their very nature, video games must be easily learnable. If it's too hard to learn, players won't play the game, it will get bad ratings, and the product won't sell. Unlike other forms of entertainment, video games can't be dumbed down or made too simple. One of the biggest complaints in video game reviews is that a video game felt too easy or that it wasn't challenging enough. The players want a challenge. Additionally, gamers are often encouraged by the idea that a player's level or ability in a video game is not important. No one is remedial. There are many difficulty levels to choose. Finally, there's the concept in gaming that there is no such thing as failure. If you die, you can try again. Regarding this idea, G says, in a school setting, my experience with Warcraft 3 would simply have been seen as a failure, as I received my low or failing grade. In reality, it was not a failure, but an important precursor for later learning. What he's getting at here is the concept of horizontal and vertical learning. Horizontal learning is exploring something, getting acquainted, getting a better understanding. G describes it as mucking around. Video games involve horizontal learning, and in fact it's encouraged. Players don't have to do anything until they're ready to do it, but this kind of learning without physical markers of improvement tends to be frowned on in education, which emphasizes vertical learning. In vertical learning, a learner makes a lot of progress and moves from one skill level to another quickly. It's often visualized as moving up a ladder. G has discovered that there are two main concepts being used in video games that make them excellent teaching tools: fish tanks and supervised sandboxes. The idea behind a fish tank is that players are all different and each player comes in with different knowledge and skill levels about a given type of game. A game cannot assume that every player has the same skill or ability. Therefore, a fish tank is a place where a player can try out simple scenarios of what the real game is like. Players aren't judged in terms of their abilities. In fact, most games allow players to choose their own level of difficulty upon beginning. Information is often given multimodally, meaning that it is often displayed upon the screen, spoken by a narrator or character, and is written in an instruction manual. No matter what their multiple intelligences might be, there is something that each player can connect with. Perhaps the most comforting part of a fish tank is that there is a large amount of supervision and hand-holding. Even a completely inexperienced player can't get too far off track, and in fact some games will not even allow the player to be hurt or lose the level within a fish tank. How is a fish tank different from typical education techniques? Fish tanks work with multiple learning styles. There isn't any prejudgment of skill level, nor is there any presumed knowledge. There is an encouragement of both horizontal and vertical learning. It stresses knowledge with action and identity and contextualized skills, meaning that whatever is taught is directly applied to action exactly as it is expected to be used, which is the opposite of, say, being taught how to sound out individual words and then being asked to read a whole page without any kind of transition in between. There's also the concept of just-in-time knowledge. Players are not expected to remember and regurgitate huge quantities of information. They're given things only as they need them, and they're expected to immediately use them. Another concept used in video games is supervised sandboxes. Essentially, a supervised sandbox is not as clean or as controlled as a fish tank. It's a step up from that. This is a chance for pure exploration. The difficulty is low and the chances for failure are low, but the player has complete freedom to explore and figure things out on their own. But the bonus is that it feels real. Players get the real feeling of playing the game but without the stress of failure. So how is a supervised sandbox different from typical education techniques? It provides gradual freedom while capturing the sense of doing something for real. While mostly left to their own devices, players are given some reminders of goals or missions, so they're encouraged to self-assess their own skill levels and progress. This type of gameplay doesn't assume that players remember everything they're taught immediately. If they need help, it's there. If they don't need help, that's fine too. In a game, a player can work to his or her potential and beyond. Often, in education, some endlessly struggle at something they're not capable of doing well, while other students are unchallenged. In supervised sandboxes, there are no penalties for trying something and then discovering that it is too hard or too easy. Players can feel like adults and be given more room to explore while still having hidden help if needed. Though current educational models don't usually acknowledge this, learning and playing are meant to go together. Young children learn innumerable skills and concepts simply from playing with other children on the playground. That learning happens because true, deep, lifetime learning is always associated with play. Gaming encourages students to improve. A good game holds attention because it is challenging. And finally, a game realizes one of the most important learning theories, the principle of expertise. The principle of expertise says that once a student learns a new skill set, he or she must be allowed time to practice it until it becomes almost routine. Video games approach the concept by allowing for repeated use of a skill and then providing a problem which cannot be solved by the pre-existing way of thinking. Gaming and learning certainly seem like they're made to go together in a classroom, but does it really work? G says, in field studies we are conducting at the University of Wisconsin, we have watched 7-year-olds play Age of Mythology, read about mythology inside and outside the game on websites, borrow books on mythology from the library, and draw pictures and write stories connected to the game and other mythological themes. This is education at its best, and it is happening at home, outside school. When games pave the way, students develop genuine interests, they are inspired to learn more, and they take a more active role in their own learning experience. So if games really work, what keeps them from being linked into education? One of the biggest factors mentioned is cost. Newer gaming systems can be expensive, and needing multiple systems and games for wider use within a school can be costly. There is also the time which must be spent adjusting curriculum to involve gaming, and the much greater span of time that must be spent changing people's minds about how and where real learning can take place. G also brings up an obstacle which he calls the content fetish. He says, when people think of learning in school, they almost always define it around content, that is, in terms of the facts and principles germane to a given academic domain. They ask first and foremost, what facts and principles, that is, what information in this domain do I want learners to know, and then they go on from this point to build their learning environment. But academic bodies, the so-called content areas of school, are, out in the real world, not first and foremost bodies of information. Rather, they are things people do with, if you like, they are games people play with, those bodies of information and the various sort of tools and technologies associated with them. How has G implemented his research? He's actually done little classroom implementation of his research. His theories are widely accepted because they're based on pre-existing cognitive, psychological, and education theories about growing and learning. He has conducted a large amount of unofficial research by playing games himself and by watching how his son and other people that he knows behave while playing. But the reasoning for his lack of implementation is simple. He acknowledges that gaming literacy can and does take many forms, so he chooses instead to discuss theories behind it. He does give many examples of how specific games serve specific educational functions. He just doesn't apply these ideas directly in a classroom setting. However, many researchers have implemented gaming literacy research based on G's work. Gaming literacy plans have been implemented in colleges, high schools, and elementary schools. At the University of Wisconsin-Madison, researchers Bagley and Schaffer used a game called Urban Science in a practicum course called Urban and Regional Planning. The students built a virtual city while acting as city planning liaisons, and the students conducted interviews with city plan approval offices. Usable knowledge of city planning greatly increased for all students. This chart shows before and after knowledge of students regarding city planning. Every student experienced dramatic increase in their applied knowledge. Gaming literacy has also been used in high schools. At Greene County High School, Georgia, a teacher used the game Neverwinter Nights with pairs of student mentors and reluctant or at-risk readers in an effort to improve their reading skills. She aimed to make reading more fun, increase vocabulary acquisition and reading comprehension, and to encourage outside the classroom reading. From her observations, her reluctant and at-risk readers were reading more after the implementation of this gaming literacy plan than they had before. Gaming literacy has also been used in elementary schools. A group of fourth graders were part of a study to see if the game Quest Atlantis could improve their ecology knowledge. According to the results of the study, it was clear in our analysis of the data that students were situationally embodied in the storyline, talking about the characters and the different perspectives. Not only did students see multiple viewpoints, but they also learned and remembered more information about ecology. The bottom line is that gaming has real potential to be a huge improvement over existing educational practices. As G has pointed out, the possibilities to applying games are endless. The main obstacles to implementation can be the cost and the adjustment periods, but if implemented, the possibilities are fantastic. Educators are limited only by their creativity and imagination. Gaming can fit many grade and talent levels and can cover many subjects. The addition of gaming can help bring education more fully into the world of the millennial student who expects technology to be a facet of nearly all aspects of life. This increased integration with students' third space allows for more genuine learning and can help students see the educational system as an important part of their personal growth.